Good evening and welcome to the Thursday, November 8th Conservation Commission meeting. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So, could we start with a roll call?
Patrick Reynolds.
Present.
Anne LaFortune.
Here.
Casey Finch.
Present.
Sam Kenny.
Present.
Sarah Finch.
Present.
Okay, good evening. We have a couple members of the public, so if you have questions or comments that you'd like to address towards the commission, only thing I ask is you come up and just tell us who you are and what your address is in Newmarket, and whoever would like to go first.
So my name is Emily Highland. I actually live at 202 Grant Road. I've been meaning to come since I bought the property, and I'd kind of had indirect dealings with you guys before I'd even closed on the property because of my awesome driveway that is on the easement. Last fall, Steve Walker is the property monitor that comes through and monitors the easement and the conservation. And he had put up a lot of new ribbons and lots of other things, and I've been really vocal about how much I respect conservation land and how that was actually a desire and a good thing when I was looking at the property, and how, I'm not going to drop trees, I'm not going to be doing anything that could be affected on conservation property. So when I saw he'd put up a lot of different ribbons and things like that, I was like, okay, I need to reach out to this guy and make it really clear that I'm not going to encroach on the easement. So I did talk to him, and I told him that I had paid to have DUSET survey come out and mark the easement and the conservation line because I didn't want to be anywhere near touching that. And he seemed really upset, but it seemed that he kind of understood where I was coming from, and I thought we were okay. So a week ago, he came through again to do his monitoring, and now in addition to trees that are spray painted blue, I have blue ribbon all over the trees, I have orange ribbon, pink ribbon, and now I have big white placards that say beyond this line is conservation land. So if you're on my deck and you're looking out to the backyard, it is ridiculous with colored ribbon, spray paint, and signs. So while I've been respectful, I'm trying to be respectful, and I want to have a very good relationship with you guys because the driveway is on the easement, it's getting ridiculous. It really is. I brought pictures if you want to see. But I want to come to some sort of agreement that if I'm on my back deck, I don't really want it to look like it's a construction zone of things. And it's the whole left side of my property and the whole back side is all conservation. So that is all marked from the top of Grant Road all the way down and all the way to the back of the property. So that's really partly why I'm here, but also to meet you guys so that you have a face to the ever-going driveway issue. Do you want to see pictures or any questions at all?
Sure, absolutely. We can take a look at the pictures.
So these are the spray painted blue trees that are right in my backyard, which this is like right along the property line. So that happened before I bought the house. And I figured that that's all that was going to be out there. Do you want to see? So that's, like, he kind of marked all along the edges. And then now, like, this is just from one perspective. There's blue ribbon, there's the blue trees, there's the white sign, there's orange tape. It's really, like, this is probably my favorite tree, like, you know, all of the other times. So this is like the whole edge of the property.
What does, it says boundary, is that what that white marker says?
I don't know where that came from either, because when I had met with Drew,
Can you go back, sorry, can you go back to the, so if anyone's following,
so that's the sign.
okay.
So I had met with Drew and I
Okay.
kind of talked to him because it is the easement. You guys could have people walking through and signs saying.
Sorry, can I just ask if, unless you're still showing us pictures, I just want people to hear who are watching on TV or
Oh, okay. I'm
from
sorry.
home.
I didn't even realize you were doing that.
Yeah,
I don't know.
it's just so people in the
This
public
is
can
like
hear
how
what
the
you're saying.
trees are marked. Okay. So I had met with Drew before I bought the property, and we understood that if that's gonna end up being a public trail or a public access point to the conservation land behind the property, that there would be signs that said, you know, public access. And we had actually requested signs that said, beyond this is private property, please don't trespass. So where these came from, I have no idea. They're all facing me, saying that beyond that is conservation land, which is kind of annoying for lack of a better word, because I did pay a lot of money to get it surveyed. I have my own markers out there from the surveying. I am very well aware it's conservation land. I'd already spoken to him last year, so to have 10 of these signs in the backyard is really overkill.
So you haven't spoken to Steve recently
I didn't
about
call him
this?
again last year. He was very hostile and borderline aggressive, and I didn't actually feel comfortable talking to him again after how last year went. This year I reached out to the game wardens, and I forget her name. I think it's Betsy, that is part of the New Hampshire Land Trust. I reached out to her last week, and she was gonna look into some things and get back to me this week. So I'm planning on calling her again tomorrow. I'm not really sure who to talk to.
Sure, so it is a little complex, so the Dearborn property that you're talking about, was given to the town by a late resident, Charlie Dearborn, that's why it's called the Dearborn property. Before he even gave it to the town, or his estate gave it to the town, the state Fish and Game already had an easement over the property, which is why, even though the town owns it today, they still monitor it. So they have, any property that they have an easement over like that, they are going to do an annual monitoring just to make sure that their easement isn't being violated, right? So I can certainly also reach out to Steve just to touch base with him and find out more. We did recently contract also as the town to have a survey done, and I don't know if that's been completed. I think it may have been. I'm not sure. So I don't know if any of that additional marking you saw could have come from our surveyor as well.
So Drew said that they were gonna be doing it soon. This morning, he said they'd be doing it.
Oh, okay, this morning. So, all right. So,
Yeah, I wanna take it all down. You know, I know where the line is. I'm not touching it. I have it marked myself. I wanna get all those white signs down and all the ribbon down as well. That's my goal, because I think when you look out, it should look like woods and it should look natural. It shouldn't
right.
be looking like that.
Well, what I would recommend that before you take anything
No, it's
down,
fine.
let me reach out to Steve and talk to him about it. I don't know if there's something going on with those trees. You know, the property, yeah, I don't think it previously had a boundary marker that was put on there by the state previously.
Just
So
the spray painted blue tree.
just okay. So
Every year I get something new.
I will follow up with him and let you know.
That'd be great.
Could you do you want to provide an email that we should email you at?
Yeah, or I can give you my number either way.
Okay.
Do you want public record, or do you want me to just write it?
You could just give it to Sue right there. Just she'll
Thank you.
record it. Thank you for coming down and letting us know what's going on, and I will follow up with you. Did anyone else have any questions? No? Okay. Jim, would you like to approach? We'll wait until Sue's finished, but then we can give you time to get anything out that you might have.
Thank you, Emily.
Yeah, tell if you can tell us who you are and where your address.
My name is Jim Phelps. I own the property that abuts the Shopmire Park on North Main Street, and specifically 8 North Main Street. I'm here because I originally had 2 thoughts that I shared with members of the committee back when I first learned about the park in April 2017. And they're really, in my mind, very small items, but I really haven't had the ears to really hear or take a position on these topics. And I have subsequently been referred to you folks. Since that time of 2017, as I think at least Patrick and I think you folks know, we had, after the park was open, we had some people coming across onto our property on 8 North Main Street. So that's a 3rd topic. And over the weekend, I have a 4th for you, but I'll try to keep it brief. I think maybe to start with, well, first of all, has everyone been to the park? Okay. But nonetheless, would you like, just for talking point?
Sure, if you have something that you think is important for us to have.
It indicates that, and again, I apologize for that. The resolution would not allow it to print much larger without being lost.
Thanks.
But what you have, and the small poster, is obviously an aerial view of the park and 8 North Main Street. The first topic that I'd like to talk about is something that came up after the park opened. That is, again, people coming from the park over to 8 North Main Street. And initially, according to the tenant that lives at 8 North Main Street, there are quite a few people venturing over to the water line or the waterfront from this area. I should explain, first of all. The residents of 8 North Main Street, the black line is the boundary line between the park and my property. I've noted, if you can see down here in the lower left, that emulates the dock that exists. And I've noted the footpath from the community church area or from the head of the park, and as it goes to the dock area. There's some dimensions that I'll get into in a moment, and the star and triangle icon I'll get to, I guess, in the 2nd or 3rd or the core topics, which are dock and kayak rack placement. But nonetheless, regarding those coming across the property line, they were doing so, if you can see the dimension of 16 feet and 25 feet, it was predominantly in that area, as well as, if you look to the far right, the magnification sign, or close to the driveway. People were driving down and or walking down the driveway instead of the wet grass, I understand, over to the park. You should also know, if you don't, when I met with the 2 members of the committee in April of 17, they were originally talking about I think a split rail fence running the entire length of the boundary in order to keep people from going from one to the other. I was against that, and I am the one that actually promoted the granite posts, being more organic, far more organic, and keeping an open atmosphere, or the feeling of more openness in the park, and I'd like to see you retain that. I am not in favor of any fencing. I am not in favor of strings or chains from post to post, and I think overall this is a small issue, because once I became aware of it, I reached out to Patrick, and I simply put down no trespassing signs on the ground on my side of the boundary line in 2 locations. And again, that just demonstrates that I'm not at all in favor of posting a sign that everybody can read it actually approach the boundary line and be looking down the ground to see no trespassing sign. And I convey that to you, just so you know where I stand, that I'm not looking for any apertures or anything that would take away, I think, from the overall intent to have a natural setting. So going forward, I would suggest simply allowing the grass to grow along the granite posts, along the wall, so that at least that's at least a passive indication that, hey, this is where the boundary is. And if that does not suffice, I'm willing again to put down no trespassing signs, but I assure you, I'll simply put them on the ground. Because frankly, if I was going to the park, I wouldn't want to see this bold no trespassing. You stay within this area, and this is not your area, and so on. But I will do that. And I don't think since that time, we haven't had a lot of people venturing over. Maybe it was just the initial opening day, or maybe it was a beautiful day and they wanted to fish more of the property line. But I think it's most important that you know my perspective. Of course, it's the park's property and you do with it as you see fit. But I'm just letting you know, as the abutter, I'm not looking for any fencing, no chains, and maybe just start off with growing the grass high. And we'll see how it goes. After that, if we need to put down signs on the ground, we'll do so. And if that doesn't work, we'll try something else. But I just wanted to let you know my perspective on this. Any questions on that issue or thoughts? Along the same line, the original topics were the placement of the docks and off-season, of course, or storage, and the kayak rack in season. As I mentioned to the members of the committee that I spoke to way back when, and since about this topic, before they deferred me to this committee, I had asked that, could we agree that the docks and off-season, well, I have perhaps two suggestions. And again, I have to stress that this is a small issue, because I think at the end of the day, for practicality, we would be all on the same page anyway, because of the amount of land that you have to work with for storage of these elements. And specifically, I spoke to the gentleman way back when about, can we put the docks, and I've indicated my thoughts on potential dock locations with the stars. The first, and maybe the most obvious, would be the one that's 100 feet set back from the dock. At that, if you can see a dimension of 45 feet, at 45 feet denotes the distance from the boundary line to vegetation or uneven slope along the water where it would be prohibitive to put anything level. And the reason for that is so that, in the same vein of keeping everything natural, is that those that are at 8 North Main Street or in the residence, and I drew a green line, as you can see, from the residence, from the southwest corner. There's picture windows facing the river on the west side, there's picture windows in the south. That's fine, but my concern and interest is that those that are residing in 8 North Main Street, or those that are visiting, have the natural landscape that they are anticipating, and maybe not seeing docks out the window or out the corner of their viewpoint. And if we could put the docks, or one option, if we could put the docks set back a little bit, they would not be in anyone's viewpoint from the residence. I put another star. Now, Patrick and I met, if you don't mind mentioning Patrick's thought of earlier this year. Patrick wisely thought of, if we have another flood, and frankly, if we have another flood, well, hopefully we never will, but there's nothing in that area to retain the docks, unless we were to drive stakes down and chain them up if the water level got that high, because it could get that high enough there to take away at least the floating docks. That is why I indicated another possible location, and that is the star at what used to be the Boy Scout camp area. There are plenty of trees in that area, and there's plenty of places there to store the docks, where, one, they would be retained by the trees, and number two, they wouldn't be seen from the abutter. And again, I just want to stress that I'm not looking for anything to be completely out of sight. I I would just like those that are residing at E North Main Street and the public to see the shoreline as it is, naturally, without the dock stacked up in the viewpoint, and that's all that I'm asking for. Along the same lines would be the kayak rack, which a possible location. I've indicated for the triangle, again, approximately 100 feet back from the docks themselves, which is not a far distance, but set back so that, one, they're not in immediate viewpoint. By the way, it's not the kayak rack that would be my concern. It's the yellow, red, blue, green kayaks that would be on the rack that would, again, take away from the natural setting. So those are the original two issues: dock storage location and kayak rack location that I observed way back when we first learned of the park, that I would like to have addressed and firmed up that they could be located somewhere that not only doesn't impede upon the abutters' view of the water, but also to keep the shoreline natural and as pristine as it may be now. And that's really that simple. I said that, at the end of the day, we may come to, or you folks may come to the same conclusion anyway, because frankly, with my dimensions, you'll see the 16-foot dimension in the center. Well, that's the distance from the boundary line to vegetation. And the water is not too far from that anyway. And that is the corridor for people to walk. So frankly, even if there wasn't concern about keeping the shoreline natural, frankly, it's impractical to put anything in that area for people to walk around. The 20-foot dimension, right about where the 2 is, or thereabouts, is the bench that is out there, the granite bench. So, although there's space there, it's fairly confined. There's also, just to the right of the dock on the shoreline, you'll see what is water. That's where there used to be a boathouse. So there's really not a lot of space there anyway. So again, I think if I never came to speak to you, I think you'd come to the same conclusions anyway, that let's get them away from the shoreline and let's keep that corridor open. And if the park is going to be open in the winter for snowshoers or cross-country skiers or in any way, they obviously are going to need access to that area. And if the docks are within that 16-foot swatch, obviously it's not going to work well there for the pedestrians. So again, I think at the end of the day, you come to the same conclusions that I have, but I'm glad to have the opportunity to be heard now. I have another point for you in passing, but I'd like to answer or hear any thoughts that anyone might have, or any questions from what I've described.
Does anyone have any questions?
No, thank you, Mr. Phelps, for your explanation. Everything you said actually makes perfect sense to me. So,
I do know the plan is for the docking company to come, I believe it's tomorrow, to take out the dock. And while they're doing that, I believe the plan is for the town, and I believe the town will be represented by Rick Molaski or somebody from his department, Public Works, to observe that, because and I think Casey might know about this too, that the town has sort of volunteered to take that on as something that they would do on an annual basis, put in the dock and take out the dock. So a lot of what is going to happen with the dock, I'm going to defer to how the town Public Works Department wants to handle it in terms of what is going to work for them, because they're kind of doing this service for us. I don't know where they store. They also have a dock down at Shanda Park that they put in and take out every year down there. I don't know how they store that or what they do with that dock, but I don't believe they leave it there. I believe they take it I don't know if they take it to one of their storage areas. So I don't know what the town's gonna decide to do. But I certainly don't have the ability to have people here take a dock in and out, and I don't believe the committee either. That's not something they have the capacity to do. So we really are looking towards the town to kind of, they'll be the responsible party, in which we really appreciate them taking that on. So
That pertains to taking out
I think it pertains to everything, storage and everything.
storage location.
Yeah, I don't know where, I don't know what their capacity is to store things. They may have a place they can take it to store it, or they may have to ask if they can store it on the property. So it may temporarily, for sure, it'll come out of the water and be put on shore. If they take it out tomorrow, if there's no weather prevention or anything else. But I don't know if that'll be the final resting place for storage for it for the rest of the season. I'm sure we'll get an update about that after they've had a chance to meet with the company and learn, all about how to take care of this docking system. There may be some consideration that they have to do in terms of how it's stored, stacked or whatever the requirements might be. I just don't know. We really haven't been involved at all in the docking system. That was something that the committee got the permits for, did the purchasing of, and set up entirely on their own. So I really don't know that much about it, I'll be honest, other than I've been there, looks great, and I know they're gonna get it taken out.
Will the committee have input to the Department of Public Works as to where to put the dock? Because it's been my experience that if someone were asked to remove something, but not told where to place it, they may place it, what's most convenient for them. And in this particular case, that might not fall in line with even the intent of the park and keeping it pristine, or a natural setting.
I think the number one priority will probably be to put it somewhere, at the very least, where it's going to be safe and no, adverse conditions will affect it. I mean, I'm sure that's the number one priority that they have is we don't want to put it somewhere where it could get damaged or, right on the shoreline where it could potentially float away or something like that. That'll probably be the first concern, I'm guessing. But again, I don't know at this point. I am going to defer to what they decide. Just because, again, they're providing this service for us. We simply don't. If they decide that the best place to store it is at the park, if there was even another place, I don't have the ability to organize a group of people to move a docking system.
I understand.
Yeah, and I wouldn't want to, honestly, I wouldn't want to take that responsibility. I wouldn't want to damage it or something like that. I'd rather defer to them because they do have that expertise. At least they're doing it now with the other docking system that the town does. So that's how I feel. I mean, I don't know if anyone else has any thoughts.
Well, I guess what I can do in regards to the town council end, is there any way I could get an email of this tonight?
Sure.
If I got that, I could forward that to our town administrator and to Department of Public Works, to Rick, and just kind of show them this suggestion. Again, I don't think we can tell them what to do, but if they at least see what you're thinking and consider your ideas, and I think they're all reasonable suggestions, but I think to have this before they start moving it would make a heck of a lot of sense. So I could email that out. If they're coming out tomorrow, I get it out tonight just so they're aware, so they have some suggested direction, I guess.
I would appreciate that.
Yeah.
Again, it's just human trait that if you're asked to do something, well, you didn't tell me exactly
That's
how
right.
to do it, so I'm going to do it myself.
Yeah.
And once they establish what is their preference, which might not be a benefit to the park overall, it's kind of hard to change that, down the road. So I appreciate the intervention, ahead of time to them.
Yeah, if I get that, I'll forward it along, and I can just add the annotations with the kayak rack and stuff. But at least they'll have that, so they're being mindful and aware of some of the concerns, and so they have some direction.
Great.
So.
Another item, just for you to be aware of, something I observed over this past weekend, the rain that we received on Friday and Saturday. Well, come Saturday, the gates went up, and after the water rose, because of the amount of water, I observed, I went over and looked, because I looked at the docks, and they didn't look the same. And when the water rose, and it was high, very high, abnormally high over the weekend, without being
Put into place, we have elevated.
flotation sections of the dock, if you're familiar, set up.
And a lot of the landscaping that we're gonna have to maintain.
And the other sections are all flotation. Because the water rose so much, those flotation sections were, I would guess, close to 12 inches above the fixed sections. Just
Agreements.
making
We
everyone
have fire
aware that if the water rose too much, it could draw.
And we have propane contracts.
It
So
could
as
draw
all of
the
those-
sections, and then when the water recedes, it's gonna wanna push out those fixed sections. And the only, the elements that are against that are the legs. So, there might be, you might consider, speaking with Rick and having, closer, perhaps, monitoring of the water level, so it doesn't get too high before it recedes, which could damage the legs. As a dock owner, I know something about those things. And that's all I have. Oh, and lastly, in passing, I've also asked, or have been asking, time gone by, if the park is gonna be open in the evening, and I haven't heard back on that. Of course, this is the first time that we've ever spoken, but I'm curious if it was decided if it's gonna be open during the evening, and of course, is it going to be open in the wintertime, which I would assume it would be.
I thought that the indication was a sort of dawn to dusk time period, so technically this time of year, obviously it's dark a lot earlier, so it's not lit, there's no lighting out there, so
Summer, we replaced what we refer to as 3
I think it's open
at the high school.
no restriction on that.
That would be my assumption. That's something also to address if you only have that 16-foot swatch, and you're gonna have traffic in the winter. We'll need to have access. Is there any other questions for me?
I don't think so. I appreciate you coming and presenting
Well,
this.
thank you for hearing me, and again, I apologize for not bringing the
Oh,
guns.
that's all right, Jim. You know what?
Perhaps next time. Thank you.
Yeah, if you'd email cfinch@newmarket.nh.gov. I can write it down.
Here you go. Actually, it's
cfinch, F-I-N-C-H, at newmarketnh.gov.
that's easy.
Yeah, and I'll forward it along tonight, hopefully in advance of I'm getting out to it tomorrow.
Would anyone else like it? Okay. We'll see you tonight.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Next on the agenda, we have approval of minutes from the meeting on October 11th. Did everybody receive the minutes? Any questions, corrections, any changes, recommendations? Motion to approve the minutes?
I make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Sarah. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
Okay. Wanted to welcome, we have a new member. Her name is Melissa Sharp. We know that got approved at last night's council meeting. We look forward to having her join the commission. We're assuming maybe she'll get sworn in sometime soon. So I'll reach out to her and ask her about that. And I believe we had her application, if anyone wanted to see that for contact information, right? No? And I'll make sure she's added to, I did send an updated list to Wendy Chase, and actually Sarah, she didn't have you on the list, so that helped clear up how many members we had, since you are considered a voting member.
Okay.
She didn't have you on there, so now we have a full 7 voting members.
Great.
Right. So, treasurer's report.
Due again to the town financial software update, there's no report this month. We will have one next month for the months of October, November, and December.
Okay. Subcommittee reports. Casey, Town Council?
Not too much to report on really, other than the budget was approved last night, so all that information is available for community to look at. Slow other than that, though. We had our budget meeting early October where we all sat and kind of met with the department chairs, but that's kind of all available to look at for the voters and whatnot. The only thing I'll mention for town council directly was there was a suggestion last night, with it being hunting season, that maybe some of the conservation lands post a sign at the entrances, just to remind people that it's, hunting season, and to wear orange or to be aware of that. So.
We have that at Piscassic Loisel.
Yeah, we do have that at, I know we have that at Piscassic Loisel, and we also have that, I believe, at Wigan Farm. There is no sign at Silverman Shear or Neal Mill Road.
There should be, because that one's very active.
Yeah, there's actually no signage, and when we get the new piece of property there, that deal finalized out there, that might be something we'll address then, to putting up some signage, because a lot of people do enter that property from that direction, and there's no signs, and I don't know, it's a patchwork of properties, because some places may allow hunting and other places may not allow hunting, so that's the other thing that people should be, hopefully are checking, that some areas are closed to hunting.
And maybe this is a thought that popped in my head for the turtle signs. We have the fold down signs. Maybe we can do something similar for hunting season, just because it's only part
Sort of a more
of the year.
permanent sign, you mean, that's there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Just an idea.
That's good. That's a good point. Yes, because I think rifle season is now started.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The signs they have up, like at Piscassic Loisel, tells you the dates and what type of season it is.
Okay.
And whatever, so it goes into details, not just, and it says wear orange. It's pretty good.
Good.
And I guess the only other thing that I'll mention, but I really don't have information on it, the dam committee was, from what I understand, was slightly delayed, so we don't have information with like the cost or with what they're leaning towards to proposing in terms of design. But it will be on the March ballot.
Still targeting to have it on the
Yeah.
March ballot.
Mhm.
Okay, thanks. Sarah, planning board?
So we haven't had a meeting since the last time we met here. Our next meeting is Tuesday, and the meeting that we had last month, we had no agenda items, so nothing
Okay.
to report.
All right. I just wanted to let the commission know that I did reach out to Steve Fournier and let him know that we were interested in the town's idea about having a more active role in the maintenance and upkeep of Shanda Park and Shopmire Park, and there's some things to look at there, so Steve will be doing that, I think, and as soon as there's an update on anything else that might happen there, I'm sure he'll let us know. There's nothing really other than that to report. Okay. Couple things that I wanted to go over. The first was that Chris and Andrea and I, so Chris Blackstone and Marianne Hannigan, all attended the New Hampshire Association of Conservation Commissions annual business and meeting conference. And just a little bit of information. Chris actually typed up a few notes, so I'm just pulling from that. They start the day with the annual business meeting, which is open to any member organization that's part of the Conservation Association of Conservation Commissions. There's also people from planning boards and all kinds of groups there, so it's not just conservation commissions. They gave out outstanding achievement awards, and they divide the state up into regions, and Epping won for our region, and I think Chris and Marianne and I all thought, well, we should apply because we do as much as they do. So that definitely planted our mind that we should submit ours to be considered next year, because I think we've done a lot in the last few years in terms of conserving properties and work. Then there was a keynote address on the effects of climate change. Dr. Richard Primack is a college professor at Boston University. He has been studying the effect of climate change in New England for over 15 years at this point. So he's got an amazing amount of information, and it's interesting what they've been able to do is that because New England has so many clubs, organizations, university colleges that have been in existence for so long, he was able to gain access to records. And he kind of was inspired by Thoreau, who wrote down, lots of records when he was at Walden Pond. And so he went out with his grad students and he gathered up this information. So what they were doing specifically is looking at things like, in the spring, what time do certain wildflowers come out? What time do butterflies emerge? What time are birds seen? And since there's all these organizations in New England that have been doing this for, in some cases, 150 years or more, and they have all these records, he's been able to go and look and say, okay, in New Hampshire, when does this species typically bloom in the spring? And he's basically found that everything has moved about 2 weeks. So spring is about 2 weeks earlier across New England, and fall is about 2 weeks later. So it was an interesting, from our standpoint, kind of an interesting study, because there's all kinds of effects that could have on lands that you're managing. And one of the things that was interesting was, this is obviously only still being studied, but we see all these invasive plants, and as the birds they've found, they've maintained sort of their regular schedule. So even though the seasons might be slightly changing, they're still coming here at the same time and leaving at the same time. So if they come and spring's further along, they may be eating things that are different. And one of the things they think that possibly is happening with invasive species is they're eating some of those things, and that's helping to spread. They've adapted to eating a lot of these invasive species that we've planted. And so because they are spreading faster than they used to, we can all know that from pulling these plants. And so that again, I was sort of a direct correlation to something that we could see. And then he also focused a lot on the changing levels of the tidal cycle. So I thought that was really interesting and helpful kind of research for conservation commissions to have. Let's see. So then there's breakout sessions, and you get to sign up for different ones. I went to the one that talked about drinking water and groundwater. Also went to one on sand and gravel pits and wetland buffers. Marianne went to Fundamentals of Conservation Commissions, which focused on, sort of the rules as set out by the statute. Conservation Fund best practices, so accounting stuff, though. She might have some stuff to share with you, Ann. And grant writing tips. And Chris went to one on aquatic species and climate change in New Hampshire. So lots of good information there. I would really encourage you guys, if you ever consider going next year, there's just so much information, so much expertise there. Especially you can meet a lot of people that have been on conservation commissions in the state for a long time who have a lot of helpful hints and good ideas. So to that end, one of the things I did pick up was a handbook for New Hampshire Municipal Conservation Commissions. This cost $10. So I went ahead and picked it up. My idea was that we could kind of pass it around and read through it, use it as a resource, and by all means come back with any other suggestions. So that was that. It was excellent. That's all I had on the chairman's report. We don't have any outstanding permits. Nothing pending for us. That's for the first time in a while. Did you have something that you were here for, sir? I just doing no, just observing tonight, or okay, just making sure. Okay. So old new business. We actually touched on this earlier with the Dearborn property. The survey is supposed to be happening this week, so we should get that.
More flags.
I wonder what color they'll be.
Yeah.
Can you request purple or something different?
Patrick, do we know who's doing the survey?
Scott Boudreau. And I don't expect actually that he will put out a lot more flags, but I could be wrong. I think what he's looking to do is just make sure that he notes on his survey landmarks where the boundaries are. Sometimes there are pins that are already out there. So I wouldn't expect him actually to put up a lot of additional markings.
My husband's brain might explode if he does. So I'll warn him.
Okay, Heron Point signage. I was working with a town and they just got back to me. They were looking to see if they had any signs that they could kind of recycle. So we rolled that out. So we will be going ahead and ordering a new sign. But I thought it was worth it. Hey, they wanted to see if they could do it. And I was, that's not a bad idea. Let's look. But Rick got back to us that there wasn't any. On Saturday at 9 a.m., I'm going to be going out to the Rosa Sand and Gravel Pit to do our annual inspection, survey, whatever you want to call it. I don't expect it to take more than 2 hours at the most, maybe less. If you would like to join me.
We done this in the past?
We do it every 3 years. And then, this is the important part, we provide some comments in a letter to the planning board, because the planning board then gives the permission for the continuation of the pit, I believe.
Okay.
So our role is important. So after I do that, I will send my report out to everybody and on the commission. And if you have any comments, please add them, or any questions. You probably won't have any comments if you don't come with me. But if you have any questions, please let me know. But again, it's open to anyone else on the commission.
What is it that you're looking for?
Really, we're just looking to see is it still being used as intended, which is it's a sand and gravel pit, and they also do store some. They receive material as well, so like it would be
So do you
soil.
look at that evaluate
Yes,
the
yeah,
materials they receive.
yeah, I mean, as much as we can, I mean, I don't have a backhoe there to
There've been
dig
some
up things,
questions
yeah.
about that.
Yeah, there, so that is the role that we're looking, and we can ask questions of Wayne. Wayne will be there with us, whoever comes. So, just wanted to invite everybody to attend if you're interested in attending. And
Casey, did they do the cleanup of Heron Point last Saturday in the rain? Did
So,
they end
so they
up-
rescheduled it for last Saturday, which was November 3rd.
It was just as stormy, so I wasn't sure.
Yeah, so the weather was not much better.
But they went ahead with it?
There was a few of them that got started, made a little progress, and once the rains really came, puddles and water was just in the way too much. There was a few that did try to stick it out, but it just didn't work out. So the idea is that we'll do a proper spring cleanup. That same group showed an interest in coming back in the
Okay,
spring
in the
for
spring,
it.
okay.
And hopefully, likewise, the gate will hopefully be up by then as well, so the park will be officially open. So, yeah, and as last I heard, we're still dealing with Eversource and the permitting with the electrician. So, and that was as of yesterday, so Wednesday.
And you had a question too, I think, about the boundaries there, like
Yep.
how they're established, and I don't know that they're marked.
Okay.
As far as, I sent you what I had, as far as, I just went on New Hampshire granite,
Okay.
that system, to find that property boundary line. Because I do think it has actually had some issues in the past with some abutters, but.
Well, and I just think the question came from, with the hope that the park will be reopening.
Mhm.
It might be nice to just reach out to the abutters again and just remind them or show them where the
Yeah,
lines are, I guess.
all right. So, monitoring reports, I believe, Anne, you went out to Pecasig-Loisel and completed a
Yes.
report, so thank you for doing
I
that.
did, on Friday, October 26th, I monitored that Pecasig-Loisel and walked the whole boundary lines except for in two small areas where it was too marshy and I was unable to walk, but I could still sight the boundary line. And that was along the Audubon property, which no private property abutted the parts that I couldn't walk. I did note that there were two areas of encroachment by private individuals.
Sounds like they're dumping yard waste, according to your
Yes,
report.
yeah, it looked like it was just yard waste.
So, what we'll do is, why don't we do this? Did you send that out to everybody, that
No, I
report?
didn't. It was just.
Yeah, I
rough
think
draft.
I'll just go ahead and forward that to everybody so that
Okay.
you guys can all see that report. And then I'll reach out to those abutters named in the report. About the, basically, there's a stone wall, is it where the stone wall is?
Yes.
And then, they're just dumping, whether it's
Just
brush
over the
or grass clippings, things like that, over the wall, which I kinda think may have happened before. I was gonna go back through some of the other older reports, but I think we've had an issue with this in the past. And I appreciate their interest in composting, but can't compost on conservation land. It's not a intended use or a permitted use. So again, Sam and I are thinking of going out to Silverman Shear. I think it was around December 10th or 11th. It was that Saturday. Yeah.
That weekend.
Whether, unless it's a driving snowstorm or something like that. That's our plan. I think everything else is already scheduled, but I don't know if anyone else has gone yet.
I've reached out to New Routes, I just haven't heard back yet.
Okay. All right. I know I did leave something off here. I did get an official resignation email from Andrea Frey, officially resigning. I just want to thank Andrea for her many years of service on this commission. She did a lot of work. She helped out on lots of things and was treasurer for a number of years. So how many years do you think she was treasurer for? Like 3 or 4 years?
I think she was treasurer for
3 years. So huge kudos to her, and I appreciate her, all that she did for the commission and the town. She's got 2 young kids, and so that's keeping her pretty busy, and that's understandable. And anytime she wants to consider coming back, I think she'd add a lot. We've talked about the meeting. The only other thing I had on there, and this was just kind of a brainstorming from going to the annual meeting, was for people on the commission and Sarah and Casey to throw out kind of ideas that you guys might have for something in 2019 that you would like to see happen, or so I'll give you some suggestions. One suggestion is that we sponsor a photo contest. A lot of conservation commissions do photo contests in their town of their properties, and then I already talked to the people in the mill. The mill space might be a place where we could actually display the photographs, and if we had a winner, a lot of commissions do offer a prize that does get some people out to do it, and it's just a good way to get publicity in your town about conservation lands and people going to them. So things like that. Some of the other suggestions were just talking a little bit more about our field trip. So with the schools, we sponsor a field trip every year, and we usually get something sort of towards the 11th hour. I think this year we have some interest from the 8th grade class on helping with their class trip, where they go to an environmental education center for a few days. So we may get something earlier than the last part of the year, but the idea was that maybe we should do something more to engage with the schools. So an example of that would be some of other commissions have come up with some sort of academic unit that relates to the land. So an example might be Wigan Farm. We have the monarch butterflies. The elementary school I know has done units on butterflies before, right? So we encourage them to come out there, try and engage with them. Maybe we even sponsor to see if we could get a naturalist to go out there with a school group and show them, the butterfly habitat and what we're doing to promote it, so that it could tie in with something that the school is doing. And they said that's another way to sort of get the higher level of engagement with the conserved lands in the town. Other idea I had was revamping our website, perhaps. And it might mean, actually going to someone on the outside and paying a little bit money and seeing if we could get an updated and more engaging website that would feature more interaction around the property. So click on it and you get a map that pops up and tells you what you can do at that property or something like that. So I did see some other examples of town websites. So when you think of your ideas, I would encourage you to do a little of that. Google some towns around here, whatever towns or any other part of the state, and look at what their conservation commission websites have, and bring those ideas back, and we can think about doing that, because I think that would be really helpful to people. That's the number one thing I hear is I don't know how to find the lands, and I don't get a lot of information off the website. So, all right, so that is all I have. Does anyone else have any new or old business items? Okay. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, guys.